Possible new oil field discovery. Charles, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. And Linda was right about the rain. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to those of you who are interested in conventional oil and gas. I feel like we're meeting among the faithful here, so I appreciate you coming. So I'm here to tell a story. And I think this story is a very common story for those of us who have put prospects together. And sometimes it just takes a while. And sometimes you have to wait for the right combination of factors to come together. And so, with emphasis on the word persistence, let's proceed to tell the story of a possible new field discovery in Washington County that took many years and many good people and a team to make it happen. And why do we tell these kinds of stories? And I would say, because we learn from each other, we inspire each other, and I've been inspired by a lot of stories of discoveries. And that's how we share our craft for those who come after us. So I want to diverge for a second from Illinois, since I'm your 101st president of AAPG, a few presidents back before Steve Goolsby, who's sitting in the back row. My passion has always been listening to discovery stories. And about 15 years ago, I wanted to organize a panel where people would explain their discoveries. It didn't exist. So what do? You just call up your friends. It's like you get the band together. And after a while, we started doing these programs. They became very popular. I had to get a lot more new friends. And what I want to make a point about APG, Steve talked a little bit about APG and the sections. The eastern section is a content generator. It brings great geology to a global community known as AAPG. AAPG brings a lot of valuable resources back to all of us who are working local basins and gives us inspiration and ideas. So I want to make you aware for a minute of some resources from AAPG on discoveries. The talk we're about to do on Illinois is just one example, one such example. Here are some of my friends that helped us put these programs together. And if you, let me go back here. We have a web link. If you like discovery stories, you can immerse in them. And go to searchanddiscovery.com, special collections, discovery thinking, or send me a note and I'll send you the link. You can watch some great discovery stories. Resources also come in the form of publications from AAPG. So Bob Merrill is sitting and his wife Phyllis in the back row. We just completed the Giant Fields of the Decade, stories of analog fields, giant analog fields around the world. And it comes with a GIS database of giant fields so you can interact with the information and come up with some new ideas for yourself. And also the bulletin. You may have noticed we have 3 special issues of the world's greatest basins have come out. We're working on number 4. So a lot of resources from AAPG. So that's, I think the ties that bind the sections to AAPG are not contractual, are not financial. It's the science. The science is the ties that bind us, and we contribute to the global community, and AAPG provides resources. Okay, so let's get to Illinois. That's why we're all here. So this talk is structured. I want to tell you how we found what we think is a new field, our methodology. We'll go through that. I also want to talk about the technology we use to convince ourselves and our partners, and then the business aspects of it. And then finally, we're just on our first well. So I'll share results, but the results are preliminary. They're just happening. So the Star Creek Energy team is an integrated team. I'm very fortunate that my partner in life, Linda, happens to be a really good geophysicist. She complements my skills as a geologist, and Linda started out as a geologist. We're both proud to be from the eastern section. And I want to say, you could take the geologists out of the eastern section. We now live in Houston. But you can't take the eastern section out of the geologists. So we're delighted to be here at the eastern section. So when you start generating leads, we all know the most important decision you make is where to explore. Where? That word, where. In 2009, we started an effort in the Illinois Basin. Why? Because the many reservoirs, the shallow oil, the access to data, and we had a partnership with access to a lot of seismic data, proprietary seismic data. We began making little red dots called leads. One of these leads, and I have to give a shout out to Ill Oil. We can't go very far, very long without talking about the incredible value that the Illinois survey provides. So if you look for deep structures, sometimes the way to find them is looking for shallow expressions. Remember the princess and the pea? There's a pea under a bunch of mattresses and the princess can feel it. Or I always like to think of the analogy steeper, deeper. So deep structures have shallow expressions. This is nothing new, we all know this. The way we found this lead, so I'm going to tell you how we found this, put this together. We saw a little wiggle in the St. John contour map, and there are some wells there. Now we didn't know that there was a higher position in the middle, but we thought there might be. So we QC'd. There is a 3D. There aren't that many 3Ds in Illinois. Some of you may have some. But there was one that we could license from a data broker, SEI, and we QC'd it, and we thought that there might be a lead. So we, Linda and I, our company, invested. We licensed the 3D. And that's kind of a scary thing because you hand over the dough and you get it back on your workstation and you might not have a lead. So we took a chance, we took a risk. But we mapped it, and believe it or not, there's a high in between a bunch of old wells. So we thought, okay, this could be something of interest. So let's dig down a little bit. So when we realized we might have a drillable prospect among some old wells, of course we checked all the old wells. The second thing we did is we immersed in analog field studies, and that's all that AAPG stuff I told you about in the beginning, that's all analog material. There's nothing more valuable to explorers, as we all know, than analogs. So we looked at the layers that surrounded us. This outline, see if I can wiggle it, have Hardin potential. And the map on the left shows that the Hardin sands are eroded. So they, coming from the west, the Ozark Dome, and so there's an area around us that includes us that appears to have the Hardin sandstone pre-drill. And we knew for some cores that we got from the Illinois survey from one of our good friends at the Illinois survey who's sitting right here, Joan, thank you, that what we're now calling carrier beds, the Hardin sandstone is a 7-foot sand below the New Albany shale, and beneath it is the unconformity of the Devonian line. So the Hardin is what, so here's our thing. This outline is the 3D. It's a weird kind of 3D done by a major in about 2000. It's south of Nashville. Here's the town of Oakdale. We think they were looking for more reefs, but they didn't find any, so they didn't drill anything. What we did is we looked at the layers around us. So the Chester has some fields that produce from the Benoist here and here. The Elkton North has some fields that produce from the Hardin sandstone. We'll talk more about that in a minute. There's some Devonian lime fields, Silurian reef fields, of course, Nashville and Nashville North. And then there's some light blue is right out of Illinois, our Trenton field. So we thought these might be all possible objectives for us. So one of the things that we've learned in putting together prospects for 35, 40 years is you have to have an executive summary. And the process of putting together a report is a good way to answer the questions that investors will ask, because the next phase, of course, is convincing others that this might be worth doing and convincing ourselves. So I highly recommend putting together a report, because it is a process that really makes you look at everything that you can. And the other thing is a tabletop montage. When we began showing this prospect, after we leased it, I'll get to that shortly, it's good to have some exhibits that people can refer back to, because when you're making a presentation showing a prospect, there's a lot of information. So if you have a map or a cross-section or key type logs, people can always put back all that information to something that they can stay focused on. So this is the miracle, I think. This is an old well, and this is an old well. And this is approximately the same gen, so the Chester sands are above it. It's not that rough, there's not that much topography, but it does get steeper, deeper. The Devonian looks like it's steeper, and the Trenton looks steeper still. And I didn't show it here, but if you go down towards the basement, it's really steep. There's a wrench under there. So we identified 3 possible objectives. So the first are the Chester sands. The second, and the Chester sands are 1,000 to 1,500 feet. The Devonian lime and the Hardin sandstone combined underneath the New Albany, 2,600, 2,700 feet in this area. And then, it's hard to believe, but down deep, and deep I mean 3,700 feet, is the Trenton. So we studied all these formations. What we learned from the Chester, this is all doing our homework, is all 3 of the Chester sands existed in the area. The Benoist was the one that produced in the area, and any of them could have been possible here, but we didn't expect too much structural relief. The second thing was we were able to tie into the North Elkton Hardin sand field to the northwest 5 miles away, and it produced about 120,000 barrels out of the Hardin sandstone, out of what appeared to be a smaller structure, not quite as tall as what field study, as we did our work on the analogs. Interesting story. So the first well drilled on North Elkton to the Hardin was in October of '71, and they made a well. Then they tried to go up dip, and they went south, but they went the wrong way. That happens. And then they went north, and they got up dip, so that was good. But we thought to ourselves, hey, we have a 3D, so maybe we could just drill this well first. Let's forget those other 2. So when we picked our location, we thought, we'll pick it high for the Devonian, high for the Trenton. Now, just a little bit about stratigraphy. This is the New Albany source rock. This is the thin Hardin sand, and the unconformity is right here. And then we knew that if we had a tall enough column, we might get some oil in some porosity below us in the upper Devonian line. We did a quick study of the Trenton. We're going to hear more from William Bandy in the next talk on the Trenton. So we looked at, we're surrounded by Trenton fields, so we thought, okay, well, we might have some Trenton potential, and we did some studies, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So at this point, here's what we have. We have the 3D, we've licensed the 3D, we found a prospect, we've done due diligence, we've convinced ourselves that there are 3 objectives. Now we have to use the displays we put together and put together the team, so the business part comes in. We acquired the leases, and that was an interesting story, because sometimes you're ready to lease, and the person who has the lease is not ready to lease. And it takes a while, so you have to respect that. So the latter portion of this talk, I'm going to talk about the business quickly, and then I'm going to share some results. So this is the project timeline. Linda likes this. This is the wandering in the wilderness. And all that, everyone laughing can relate, because prospects sometimes take time, you know? So we did the technical work early. We licensed the 3D. First attempt to lease, wasn't right time for the family for various reasons, and we respected that. We were frustrated, but we respected it, and we had other projects. But we came back a few years later, and the new lease broker, a new field agent, and we really were able to listen to the needs of the family, and we were able to work out the lease. We also had all the leases around, so that was a good thing. Then we began the marketing phase. Oh, and right after we got the lease, the price of oil dropped. So one of the points here is, you know, through good times and bad times, you just have to keep going because you can't control it. And if you're not making prospects in bad times, what do you got to do in the good times? We were able to find a wonderful partner and a great operator. We put the project together, we drilled it in April. And right now, we visited the well on the way here, on the drive here. We got to visit Michael. Payne is in the audience. Michael did a great job. Thank you for your completion course yesterday. And I got to tell you, I was really glad during that class, Michael, when you talked about completions and doing them right, that you're our completion guy. So, like working with you. So now we're waiting for a hookup, but we visited the property and we're gonna hook it up soon. So somebody sent me this LinkedIn map. Maybe they thought it applied to us, and you know what? You may have seen this on LinkedIn. This is out of an old HGS publication from the 1970s about the prospect that has all these sorry excuse wells surrounding it, and then somehow the thing that you really want to do in the middle is you don't have the right astrological alignment on the lease. And it just struck home. It was like, wow, this is our story. So let's start with the results now. So the Trenton is what we're working to complete. And I hear angel music. So these wells are not deep enough. So the Trenton here is just projected down from the Devonian. There is an old 1972 Anschutz well that we were able to get structurally up dip, and this is our mudlock with, these are the shows. And one of the things, of course, that we have to point out is that our top of our projected top was minus 3,020 feet on our report structure map, and we were 3,021. So we had very good velocity control and a very good geophysicist. What was interesting from our field studies of the other Trenton analog fields that William's going to talk about is we could see in well control, for example, at Pyramid Field, that there was a Devonian line to Trenton thin from a whole bunch of wells, and that seemed to coincide with the best wells. But we have a 3D, so we thought we don't have to drill a whole bunch of wells to make that isopack. We will make an isochron. So we believe that our Trenton well is not only at the top of the current day structure, but that it's coincident with a paleostructural ridge, which I think may be a good thing for the Trenton. And this is what it looks like. If you flatten on the Devonian line, where we drilled, there's a decided thin paleostructure in addition to the current day Trenton structure. And for those of us who played the Trenton, it's tough, right? There's not a lot of porosity. We have 3 to 5%. This is the 1973 Roaster well, Anschutz well, and it has very 3 to 5% porosity. And maybe if you're lucky, you get 7. But we took some comfort that Pyramid Field also has very low porosity, and this well made 120 barrels a day and no water. So we suspected secondary porosity and fractures, and Alan Benigman, who contributed to this project, saw and pointed out that that was probably happening here. And so this is, now we're in the results section. So this is the log from the well we just drilled in April, and it's 3 to 5%, maybe we get 7% porosity here and there, but we had good shows and good drill breaks, and the guy who was on the scene, Colton, I'm giving you a shout out here, buddy. Colton was our mudlogger, and Colton did a great job of catching the samples. And we had oil cut and residual cut in the Trenton that matched the shows while drilling, so that's a good sign. And when we completed it, we have 36.4 API gravity oil. Just smelled it. It smells really good. It's sweet. one of the things that we did is we used the Kraken, which is a type of gas gun, so that when we gave our perks, we got out, made sure, because we knew we were dealing with tight rock, Trenton type, low porosity. We needed to get to fractures and permeability, so we did. We reached out from the wellbore. So this is a great pre-treat also, I've been told from people who use this technique, a pre-treat for acid jobs and fracs, but we haven't done that yet. We're waiting to get some production history from the vertical well. So now let me that's the Trenton. This is a work in progress, so that's all we've got so far. We do expect good things in the Devonian and the Hardin sandstones, but we haven't tested it yet. So let me just share with you, we took a core, and the core goes from the base of the Choto, thank you, Scott, through about 20 feet of New Albany shale to 7 feet of Hardin sandstone that has oil shows and fluorescence. And this is the upper Devonian that also has some oil shows and fluorescence. So we think this is something we need to test soon. Maybe not in this well until we're done producing the Trenton, but maybe in another well. Here's the core. Thank you, Colton, for laying it out. This is the top, so we're gonna go from right to left. I'm not showing you the Choto or all the New Albany, but I'm just showing you the base of the New Albany and the top of the Hardin sand, which comes to here, and then this is the Devonian line. So right here is the unconformity. This is a little unconformity. And so this is the sand, shaded, come see us, and we want to work with Maria about doing a New Albany shell study. Perfect, thank you, Scott. And once we work up the core, maybe you'll see us back here at a future Eastern section meeting. We'll tell you what we found. The Devonian Hardin sand had shows and residual cut, and the Devonian limestone, same thing. So, what's the future? We could drill a bunch of vertical wells, and I think we probably will drill a few more. But here's the stress field, and for those of you who are in the horizontal game, I'd love to visit with you. We also know that we have the Paleo Ridge for the Trenton, and we may consider at some point doing some directional so that we can maybe save vertical well locations. Just while I've got this Devonian line map up, I will point out that it really does kind of look like that map from LinkedIn, because here, here is a well with no record. This well, no record, bleeding oil, slight show of oil, slight slope of oil, slight show of oil, slight show of oil, slight show of oil and gas, slight show of oil and gas. So, we went up dip of that, and we'll see what we get. So, as we wrap up, let's bring it back home to why we do what we do. First of all, we do it because we love it. We love to explore. It was wonderful to go out to the farm, to meet the people that own the property. They're happy. When they're happy, we're happy. This is the farmer on the right with the coveralls, and he's got his finger in the well, very pleased with the way we're working together, because we want to manage their property, and it's a blessing for their family. As we were there, we looked around, there's room for more wells. And of course, there always is. So with that, I just want to thank some people. I want to thank my co-authors, several here. I want to thank Shawnee and for being our operator. Thank you to the landowner for coming around. Thank you to all the partners and fellow investors, several who are in the room. Some of you may know Joey Smith from Hinora. Joey was a big help to us. Colton Schuler, thank you, Colton. You're the great, we love working together, great mudlogger and a great field engineer. Thank you for the SEI for letting us license the data, and thank you for the Eastern Section for putting on meetings like this that allow us to tell some stories. And thanks to the Illinois Survey for all the reports, all the data, all the management, all the things you do, all the work that you've done over the years to preserve the wonderful record and to make this possible for all of us. So we're trying to turn the rig on the right to the wellhead, rig on the left to the wellhead on the right, and so well number 1. To be continued.
Real quick, tell everybody what the landowner's son said about all of this. Because I think that kind of stuff's important.
Yeah. We were together, and Linda asked what impact this might have if we get a couple wells here, might have on the family. He has, he's working several jobs. You know, it's not easy to be a farmer. Those of you who are farmers know that. And I respect farmers because how hard a life it is. And he has to work 2-3 jobs. And he said he's not home very much because he has to travel. But as part of his trip, he has a young family. He says this means he's going to get to spend a lot more time with his kids. And that was really good. I was happy to hear that. And that made my day. And then the second thing that made my day is smelling the oil.
Any other questions? Let's go over here and then we'll go back there.
Oh, here? Okay.
Yes.
Are you thinking about doing any geochemical fingerprinting of the oil? Is it New Albany? Is it from coconut source?
Aha. Well, we've done very basic analysis. We haven't done it yet. So that's always a good question with the Trenton. Maybe we'll learn something from Wayne Bandy's. Where is the oil coming from in the Trenton? It's probably not the New Albany, right? I mean, is it?
I
don't think so.
I'm an Ordovician guy, so I'm
It's
kind
got to
of
be
biased
Ordovician,
there.
so yeah.
Very
good.
distinct geochemical signaling.
Let's do this quickly and ask the question, then I'm going to switch to talk
What units are you drilling on, Charles, or what would you have to do if you wanted to drill horizontal? Would you have to make a bigger unit somehow, or what?
I think this is a big lease, so it's a 280-acre lease, so I think we could, I don't know that we need to make a unit to go horizontal for this, on this lease. It's big enough, Murray. I think I have to check that. I don't know.
Unitize the whole thing.
That's possible, that's possible. Those of you who have horizontal experience in Illinois, please come talk to me. And anybody who has some suggestions on how to take some of these reservoirs that are low permeability and get net feet of pay up by going horizontal, I think you got the right idea. So we'd like to learn too.
I get that. I'm going to have to cut you off for a lot.
We had, so we thought we might